Good morning, it's Brian from Brian's Budget Bonsai again. We just took a walk with Sophie, so we are going to try to do a little bonsai work this morning before I have to go to work. It is still a little cool, been still getting temperatures into the 90s, so best time to do this is in the morning. I tried to make some bonsai videos over the weekend. Maybe one that gets posted. It was about making my compost tea, but I used a new camera and I used a new editing software, and I'm not sure that I like using either one at this point. So I'm back to using the iPhone. Yesterday I tried to mow the lawn in the midday heat and just took the wind out of my sails like that. So I am going to try to see if I can just do this stuff in the mornings and not have to try to get energy in the afternoon heat for a while. But I thought we might do some pruning of one of my trees here, and let's see if we can figure out which one. Oh, so many to choose from. Should we choose the peach? Another sweet gum? No, not going to do the crepe myrtle. It is just about to come into bloom and we don't want to waste those. Another one of the box elders, and this one might be a strong contender. This is that triple trunk elm. It's already had one haircut this year and it needs another. I do remember one of the first people that commented on my videos asked about elms, and so I might do that just because there was somebody asking about elms, and these are my ficus. And again, this is the parent plant right here. It was a store-bought one, and I've done a lot of work to try to get its roots a little bit more or less looking like a potato with leaves growing out of it. So that's due for a repot, and you can repot the tropicals in this heat. They actually don't mind it at all. And they also make great cuttings, as you can see. I've got them all over the place, and they can grow in a variety of different containers. And actually, this is one of my examples of this little ficus thing that I've got growing in this tiny little container. So they can, and it gets pretty nice root bases on them. So that might be a contender. We will, well, not to say, I'm not going to, that one, all the ficuses need a pruning, so but that might be something that we save for July. This is the last day of June. Getting a little dieback on my blueberry bush. Oh, this is one I didn't show you before. This is a sassafras. I never seen a sassafras bonsai before, and actually this was from I got it at a raffle at our bonsai meeting, and it actually died back all the way to the ground over the winter, and I thought it was dead, and it sprouted up from the root base. So I am just going to leave this alone the entire year, not touch it, just let it grow, let it get vigorous. Apparently the guy that donated to the raffle did dig it up as a collected species, so its root base probably needed a little time to grow, and last year was just not the year for it. This is, believe it or not, a maple that I dug out of my mom's backyard in Chicago and transported it all the way back home. This is a volunteer that grew up in the neighbor along the fence between her and her neighbors, and it actually had multiple trunks at one point, but they all died back, and this was the only trunk that survived. So I'm just going to let it grow in this cut off nursery container, let it get nice and healthy, and then I'm just going to do probably a big chunk chop on it, get it thicken up its trunk as much as you can. A good look at my wired up weeping willow, and just check, it doesn't look like we're getting any wire bite yet. So this stuff can stay on for a little longer. It's always a little bit of a, you gotta be very diligent about when you're wiring things. I don't wire as much as a lot of bonsai people do. I try to use grow and clip whenever I can, just because if you let the wire stay on for just a little too long, it leaves scars. There's actually a few scars on this tree from previous times where I left it on for a little longer. And also, but also if I take it off too soon, these are a little springy. So I've had times where, I take the wire off and then everything just goes sproing back up. So we'll see about that. But this is actually a forest of cork bark willows. Willows also, if you can keep them moist in the summer, keep them from drying out, they do make really good beginner bonsai. And you can these are all, again, just propagated cuttings. You take a willow and you stick a willow cutting and you stick it in some dirt and keep that dirt moist. You can even just put it in a bucket of water. It'll grow roots, and it'll grow roots on thick wood and stuff like that. So I just kept adding cuttings to this forest until it got to be this way. Oh, and I gotta show you this little guy here. He's a little Walking Dead figurine. He's a zombie in there. So I have a zombie in my forest there. So this is another thing I was thinking of pruning. Oh, spider webs! Is my bonsai, and that's my elm forest with the truck in it. It's looking a little overgrown, but that's a big project. Probably something I'm going to do on a weekend when I have a little bit more time. All right. The honeysuckles bloom nice, adding a nice fragrance to the air here. And again, I'm gonna let those run out a little bit, and then when the blooms fade, trade them, cut them back. This has already had one haircut this year, but with vines, you gotta let them run, and then first, and then cut them back after they've had the chance to run and get some energy. Alrighty, so that's just the ones underneath here. We haven't even worked with, talked about what's on the other bonsai bench, but I think I'm going to prune back that triple trunk collected elm that I have. So that's what we're going to do now. And I'm going to drop the phone here. Hold on. Okay, we're in the man cave, and it is air conditioned. I actually just turned off the AC so we didn't have to shout over it. But here is the triple trunk that I have here. It needs a little weeding. And actually, you can see that this is one of the non-wiring ways to adjust the position of a branch if you just need it lowered. I just have a piece of bamboo skewer that I just cut off, and I've got it wedged between the two trunks to just try to push that lower one down. You can use wedges, and before wires, bonsai practitioners used to actually, to change the position of a branch, would like tie rocks to it and let it just get like pulled down that way to add extra weight to a branch. But we are not going to use any wiring on this tree, so we're going to try to do this one as grow and clip. So let me set this up on my stand and see what we can get done. Okay, so I've got it all set up here. Just going to take a look at a 360 turn. This is probably going to be the front of the tree. It's obviously got the thickest trunk in the front and the two minor trunks in the back. It's right now, it's just a question of how bad we want to trim back. We're going to trim back just for ramification, or we're going to do some branch selection too. We want to make sure the energy is equally distributed, and we also want to start creating pads that kind of like little flat areas here and making sure there's space between them so that they have a chance to have light get in there, but also kind of like distinguish each area from there. I was actually thinking about maybe cutting back this branch a little more to give an idea of like, okay, this in the, you know, not letting this get too high. I cut it back just, you know, just a question of how much. You know, we're talking about that trick is like, okay, well, does it look better with or without? So we're gonna see. I'm gonna cut it back a little bit just in terms of what I can see what's in there, see the structure, so it's not just a big green blob, and then we will take it from there. I'm gonna move our little fairy garden decoration there. I'll get a chance to pull out some weeds. But we'll see. Maybe go into this into time lapse again. It decided not to do time lapse. So I'm going to talk us through this as we go. All right, so first of all, we're going to give this thing a kind of a haircut here. See if we can cut back to some branches here. Get these ones that are just shooting up towards the sky. Like those ones I cut back all the way because they didn't have any leaves close in. And that's sometimes the problem if you let it go wild a little bit too much. You might lose some of your ramification because you won't have that close in leaves to trim back to. So sometimes you can take a chance and just like cut back to bare wood and assume that, okay, there was just some leaves that fell off, and there's still some dormant buds that can grow branches from there. But let's go with haircuts, and again, trimming back to two leaves when you can, so that it can form two branches from there. Like here's a perfect example. This long run right here. No buds no leaves that I can see through here, but I really want to have this foliage a little tighter here. So I got an option of trimming it all the way back and seeing if I can get something to grow a little further back, or just take a chance. I'm going to trim it right about here, kind of like halfway between where it came out and there, and hoping that there might be a dormant bud in there that'll form a new branch. Usually you'll find that branches will grow from pretty reliably from a base of a leaf. At the base of each leaf there is usually a dormant bud that can form another branch. And when a tree is trimmed, you know, it wants to grow from at the tip. But when a tree is trimmed, it says, okay, I've been damaged, I got to grow from further back. So if you go back and you cut back to just two leaves, well, it'll say, okay, well, I have to make branches at those 2 points. And that'll hopefully give you 2 more branches, from going from 1 branch to 2, you know. And if you want a branch to grow outward, you try to make the last leaf a leaf that's pointing outward, because the position of that last leaf will be the direction that branch will eventually grow. So that's called directional pruning, and it's kind of the basis of grow and clip technique. Is if you want a branch to go in a certain direction, rather than using wire, you use the direction of the last leaf you left, and that will hopefully be the direction of the next branch, or future branches, as I should say. And if you say like, okay, well, this one I cut back here and its leaf went up, and I should have cut back to the leaf below that because I didn't want a branch to grow up, I wanted a branch to go in that direction. So that pruning probably should have been back there. So again, I'll make that one go down and out rather than up. because we don't want everything to grow together. We want things to kind of have their own separate little space in the sun. And you don't want things on the branches to grow straight up. You want them to kind of grow out like that. So you can selectively prune, not only for branch direction, but if you've got a branch that's like sticking straight up like that, you could say, well, I can try to redirect it, trim that back a little bit, or just remove it altogether. You don't want, let me show you here, right here. I don't know if you can see that we've got a branch that's growing back towards the center of the tree. Those you don't want. You don't want things to grow back towards the center, so you can remove those. All right, and let's see, we're just gonna keep going along here, trimming back and chatting and trimming and chatting. And good thing about the elms is that they do bud back, which means they, you know, if you do cut it back to bare wood, they do a good job of forming new branches straight out of the trunk. Matter of fact, sometimes you have to go back and get them like right here. It's like I cut something all the way back to the trunk here, and a little guy kind of came out right there in the middle, and I don't want these right now, these little ones at the moment. But like, say if you wanted to start over with all your branching, you could cut off all the big branches and let it regrow from the trunk with brand new branches. If, like, say you're just like, I'm just going to restart everything. So elms are pretty good about that. Most deciduous trees are pretty good about that. There'll be a few times where they won't respond real well to that. But it's going straight for the sky. We're going to take that one. You know, we're going to see if we can redirect that one. Have to go that way. Sometimes you just want to cut the branch off. Sometimes you want to say, I got to send you in a different direction. Ooh, so that one kind of, again, big space, no branches. These are pretty forgiving. Most elms are. And again, since this is essentially a free tree, you can afford to be a little more experimental and bold. That's what's good about, you know, starting off with inexpensive trees. Don't spend a lot of money on fancy trees when you are just learning learning the techniques. It is tempting to want to have that instant gratification, but bonsai is all about patience and the learning process. It is learning patience is probably the biggest thing that bonsai teaches you. It's you cannot just go like, okay, well, there's a lot of those instant bonsai things. Well, a lot of times those instant bonsai don't survive. If you try to do too much work all at once and get that perfect little bonsai tree right from the beginning, there's a good chance that you may have stressed that one out too much, and it'll die on you. So again, I keep cutting back till I get this the profile and shape I look. If I get a branch that's growing in the direction I don't want, it just take that one out. They'd make a lot of branches, these elms, so you have a lot to choose from. And it's always better to have more, you know, as the saying goes, spoiled for choice. Better to have too many choices than not enough. So if you got a tree that's only got like one branch on it, well, it's like, well, you just got to work with that one branch. But you got, you know, a branch that's got, you know, a tree that's got like, you know, 30 branches. It's like, okay, well, I got plenty to choose from. And also sometimes when you'll have things that'll a junction that maybe you'll have, you know, 4 or 5 leaves or branches coming from one area, and it's like, well, I only really want 2. So, but if you got 4 or 5, you've got some choices. I'm gonna leave that alone. I think that's pretty good. That's why I'm gonna bring down just a little bit, see if I can get that to grow flat. You know, sometimes you can just go by and clip off anything that's growing down or anything that's growing up and leaving anything that's growing out. And that is a perfectly good way of starting pruning. It's just like, you know, if it's not growing in the direction you want, you cut it off. And that way things flatten out over time after, you know, picking out the things that only grow in the direction you want. Pretty soon you've got nice branches that are growing everywhere that you need them to be. Probably should just go ahead and give a rough haircut here. I can trim it back. And again, this is perfectly good thing. If you've got a tree where you're like, okay, well, it's just getting a little wild and I don't have a lot of time, you can just kind of do the, you know, give it a trim, a haircut, just rough cut like that. And even in that in itself will create ramification. It's fast and it gets the job done. And you can always go back on something like this later on and do a little bit more selective pruning. But if you just like say, well, this is just getting too wild, but I don't have the time or the patience at the moment to go ahead and do all this branch selection, etc. Well, you can just go by and just give it a quick little haircut. And then later on, you can do your branch selection. But yeah, if anything's kind of like growing into each other, cut those things out. If you want to see a guy who can fly through this, I recommend you check out Heron's Bonsai channel. It is by a gentleman in England named Peter Chan. Interesting guy. He owns one of the premier bonsai nurseries. He's got thousands of trees, and he works so fast. You think that when he's pruning, you think he's on time lapse. He's so fast, but he's got thousands of trees to work with, and he does have a staff to help him with. But again, especially for his videos, he likes to do as much as he can for himself to kind of demonstrate the techniques. He does a lot to kind of like realize that, you know, you can be kind of brutal, you can be kind of aggressive on these things, and they will keep going. Of course, when you have 1,000 trees, you can make mistakes and still have thousands of trees. But that's another reason why my bonsai collection has kind of grown is that if you want to have this as a hobby, sometimes you have to have a fair amount of bonsais to work on so that you don't just nitpick on that one that you have and end up overworking it. You're never giving it a chance to just grow. And that is one thing, especially when you're doing the grow and clip, is you need to let them grow. You can't just, you know, play with them all the time. You know, you want to, but, you know, having multiples to work with, you know, gives you a chance to like, okay, well, while I'm messing with these other trees, I can give those other ones a rest and just make sure they're watered and healthy and get some vigorous growth in there. So there's a couple things we could think about here. If we're looking at this as the front, I want to make sure you can see the trunk line. So I'm going to cut back anything that might be interfering with the trunk line. Also, if anything that's coming straight towards the viewer, you know, it's often referred to as an eye poker. When you're looking at the tree, it's aesthetically unpleasing to have something coming like right at your eyes. It's like 3D, whoa, whoa, like that. So don't, so sometimes you can do like, say, this branch right here, it's kind of coming out right at you. So it could be something where we could be just cut back a little bit, and or just even cut off and give him a chance to grow in another direction. So if I just cut that off, you see that now you can see the trunk line a little bit better, and allows you to kind of like see where the things are at the apex. Might need to kind of give these things a little trim here. Again, this one going across the trunk line, we don't want that, so off you go. A lot of trees are very vigorous at the top, so you sometimes have to be a little more aggressive trimming things back at the top, because it wants to put all its energy on the top. It wants to be a big tree, and it wants to grow to the sky. And you're like, no, I don't want you to be a big tree. I want you to be a bonsai. And there we go. Get some of that stuff in there. Clear that area out there a bit. So the danger is that you'll get all this growth at the top and minimal growth at the bottom. And then the trees, limbs at the bottom will be maybe thin and weak. And the branches at the top are vigorous and strong, but also thick. And that means that you sometimes will have thicker branches at the top and thinner branches at the bottom. And you really don't want that. You want to have thicker branches at the bottom and thinner branches as you go along. So sometimes you have to go in and say, all right, well, that branch is just too thick at the top. It spoils the illusion of a larger tree just shrunk down. So you have to sometimes be a little more aggressive growing thing, you know, with the pruning at the top, because it wants to put all its energy there, and you want to redirect that energy to the lower branches so these thicken up and get a little longer. Again, also to kind of have that tapered triangle appearance. And let's see, there we go. Let's see, there's a branch in there. And again, sometimes it can get just kind of cluttered. There it's getting kind of cluttered. And the question is what do I need, what I don't need? You can prune back a few things. Like, let's say if I want to have this be the new leader, and then I can prune back here, and that will, again, kind of cut it back. This is actually the previous pruning point, and I think this was going to be its leader. Or I could just cut this whole section off and allow this to be its leader. And actually that makes a little more sense, because if this is my front, I want to have a leader that kind of comes this way at the top. Right now, that stronger branch, that leader branch, is heading in that direction away from the viewer. We want to have the top coming towards the viewer. So this actually would make a little bit more logic to have this cut off. Unless I can use the Peter Chan white bag trick, or in my case, the white paper towel trick. And see, if we cut that off, that was gone. Let's see, would that look better as an apex. I think so, but that would bring the scale down on this, so I definitely would have to scale back this a little bit here too. But I think that is the way we're going to go with that. So, so as the was it the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland? Off with its head. Not quite. Off with one of its heads. And again, this is thick, 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 but this is thick, thin, thinner, thinnest. So you're going to get that taper. Taper is when you are trying to get the branches to be smaller as the tree continues. Now, elms will make good cuttings. Now, I have not tried creating an elm from some cutting that thick. You know, some like things like the ficus and willows and the portuacara. You could take thick branches and stick them in dirt, and they will root. And I'm not so sure about something this thick. This might be something that it's just too much foliage, too much. It's hard to get things to root back. We might do a show on clippings and rooting and things like that, using rooting hormones, maybe at one point. But we'll stick to the basics for now. But how are we doing on time? Ooh, we got I probably got to start wrapping it up pretty soon. I'm looking at the time. I haven't had breakfast yet. I haven't had a shower yet, and I'm going to have to leave for work in probably a half an hour. I don't punch a clock, but I do have appointments that I have to keep and tell people that, hey, I'm going to be here at a certain time, and there's expectations of that. So, yeah, I definitely think it was a good idea to kind of clean that out a bit. And again, that's getting old. We want to make sure that we don't have too much competition from other branches for the leader. And again, I might take that one off and just let that kind of be the leader, and actually then cut this one back too. Again, so that's my leader here. I'm going to cut this back to a lower branch. That may have been a little too much. So remember what I said about putting the shears down, putting the scissors down at some point? At some point, you do have to put them down, or you will cut away things that you probably shouldn't have cut away with. I am going to, though, do a little bit more of the cutting back of some of these thicker ends. Again, I did light pruning on the lower branches, but we should do a little more aggressive pruning up top to make sure that your things are staying in the right direction. Deciding what I want to keep and what I don't want to keep here. And the question is, I don't know if you can see how much you can see from the thing, is do I need all of this? I think I want to keep this. I may cut back this branch because that way there's little spaces between there, because it's a lot of branch right in there. And again, this is a thicker branch and this is a thinner branch, so we might want to keep the thinner branch. Or at least cut back some of the vigorous growth on this. You can always cut back more, but you can't put a branch back on. So sometimes it's, well, wait and see. Sometimes it's, there we go. And again, right, these parallel branches right on top of each other. I might actually allow this one to be the one that gives us the most growth. And again, that's a fairly thick branch. Sometimes the idea is you know, if you got a thick branch, sometimes you can cut it off. Sometimes you can just let the other branches get more vigorous, and they'll take over and catch up. So if you want to keep the branch, but you think it's getting too thick compared to the other branches, well, let the other branches have a good time, party, and get big and thick, and and the other ones are like, okay, well, you cut those guys back. Yeah, see, I think if I'm going to make this right here, yeah, I think I am going to cut back this other trunk, and so that's not so much in competition with that. I'm going to lose this whole top, have these branches kind of be the top there, or I can cut back just right here. Again, you can always cut back more, but you can't put it back on. So if you cut back something, now I still have some growth in this direction. So yeah, I think it was probably wise not to have cut that back too much. I'm going to maybe give that again, so that it was growing around a little too much in that direction. Again, always go back and check your front, see what it looks like, see what maybe right about there. So it was a little bit more aggressive pruning than I actually thought, but once I got in there and started seeing what I wanted to do, a little dead branch there, I thought to myself, you know, sometimes I got to correct these problems when I see them. If I don't correct them when I see them, then yeah, it's just going to propagate the problem, make it or perpetuate the problem, I should say, and you eventually say to yourself, oh man, now this is going to be harder to correct. But so this will allow, this tree now should respond by putting out a whole new growth, a lot of new growth at the cut points. I'm going to come in there and put on some cut paste, and some of these might even get the cut putty, a little bit bigger cuts, then put it back out. We got some good rain last night, so I don't need to be watering this morning. Hopefully we'll get some consistent pop-up storms in the afternoon that'll keep things watered, so we don't waste water. Let Mother Nature water it for free. But hopefully this has been helpful. I might eventually, and if I decide this is where I'm going to be doing it, I might eventually have kind of like a solid colored black backdrop here to give some contrast. I've seen a lot of other bonsai people do that where they're, you know, because this might be hard to see with a non-solid background, but we'll see. Again, trying to figure this out as I go. But in the meantime, I got to get going. I got to get to work. I got to clean up this tree. Putty up this tree, and so that I seal all those cuts. And so in the meantime, happy bonsaiing. You guys have hopefully continue to like and subscribe and leave comments. Again, this past weekend was a amazing weekend. My daughter apparently did a little bit of promotion for me, and I'm over 200 subscribers now. When I went into the weekend with 10, so I was like, oh look, I've got 10, yay, 10 people like me. So Thank you all for any of you who have subscribed in the last couple of days. It makes it exciting for me and encourages me to continue to do these. And I will hopefully be able to put a couple videos out a week, minus when, life gets in the way. I got some vacation time coming up soon, so I might be MIA for a while. But when I come back, I'm sure there'll be a lot of things that have either overgrown or died and stuff like that. So we'll have to see what type of things happen when you're relying just on a timer to water your plants and hope that some falls from the sky, or we don't have any high winds that knock all your bonsais off their benches and shatter their pots. But that happens sometimes. But it's another reason to cut these things back a bit, is because it does reduce the wind sail effect. Where if you got a small pot and this big bush on top of it, whoop, off the bench it goes with a good first gust of wind. This allows the wind to go through the tree rather than pushing the tree over. But in the meantime, y'all be cool now and stay cool and hang loose and anything else cliches I can come up with. Okay. All right. See y'all next time.